Hello and good afternoon. This is Andrew Foss, and we are on the line again. Is November 14th, 2017, and I'm on with Laura Walker. Today we're going to be talking about the new moon as it's going to be entering Scorpio on November 18th, and what's going to be happening within this next month. And let's just say it's going to be a roller coaster ride, and there's a lot to find out. So with that, here's Laura Walker.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks for getting together this afternoon. It seems like we're
welcome.
always talking about roller coaster rides.
Yes, it happens. And, hey, it's the way the energy's going.
It's going that way with lots of roller coasters, but I have some really good news about where all that's going. We've kind of been on the roller coaster ride, the magic carpet ride all last year, and then remember the energetic that we're working on all during this solar lunar year that started back in April was a woman's hat with streamers blown by the east wind. So we knew all along that this year was going to be mind-blowing in a lot of ways. Of course, as I've been saying for the last several years, I really couldn't have predicted it would be as mind-blowing as it is and as fast as it is, but here we are. And I'm so happy to be having the opportunity to talk with everybody because I have been working behind the scenes, even though I haven't been writing every day. Andrew has been writing over at Facebook and keeping everybody up to date with the Sabian symbols for the day. And so with the energy that I have as I'm recovering, it's kind of a bigger, broader view, and we're going to take a close look at the new moon in Scorpio as it pertains to leading into the fabulous new moon in Sagittarius. That's like going to be, oh gosh, so lovely. And then we're a little bit into next year, so you're going to want to have something to write with and write down some dates on, because I have a lot of dates to highlight just as things to be aware of. So let's just get started. Let me just do a little housekeeping. It's really not housekeeping. It's more like let's do a little bit of a lesson here. Let's look back, and before we go to Scorpio new moon, I would like to look back until to the last time I posted, which was for the alert that I had posted for November 4th for the Antifa events that were happening around the U.S. and in conjunction with the full moon, and I had highlighted how Atlanta had the most energetic. The full moon was most intense over Atlanta, to highlight that there could be possibly some activity there. Well, the Antifa day didn't really pan out so much, but we did on the day after have the shootings in Sutherland Springs, Texas. And so I wanted to bring this up to talk about how to read or use these alerts when I put them up. I don't know if I'll ever do it again. I just do it as I'm prompted, and that came up very quickly, and it was from a series of synchronicities throughout that day that prompted me to do that. So let's think about this and what that is in a range. Let's look at it from a little bit of a range of how we can utilize astrology. Mm-hmm. So we know that energy is in effect in different cycles. On the new moon in Aries, wherever that degree is, that energetic will be in effect for that moon phase, that 3+ days, and then it'll also be in effect to some degree for that whole month, and then to some degree for the whole year. Just like I just said, the last new moon in Aries, which sets up the next year, it's the new moon, it's the new year in astrology. That was a woman's hat with streamers blown by the east wind, and so we get that tone for those first 3+ days of the new moon phase, and then we have that's one box, you could say, and then the big higher box around that we have the month and then the year, and that's what we have with the new moon in Aries. That's how that works. And so for that full moon on November 4th, that 3+ days, that energetic is in effect. So whatever is the imprint at the time, the minute of the full moon, the new moon, any phase, anytime the moon changes phase at that minute, a new energetic comes in. And this is why following the cycles, the natural cycles, allows us to elevate our perspective, because we aren't mired in day-to-day or hour-to-hour events in our lives. We can take a higher perspective. It gives us a structure or a framework in which to place the context of what's happening in the world. This is very important right now because, like I said, things are happening so rapidly. We want to remain grounded. And so when we can fit in a structure what's happening and try and look at it and then apply esoteric information or wisdom, the objective here is that it helps us stay grounded and ride and perform our mission during this time, during this transition.
Okay.
So if you remember on the list, I had Atlanta was highlighted, and then I listed all the other cities that had planets activating them. And remember that San Antonio was one of them. Sutherland Springs is like 30, 40 miles from San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
San Antonio was on the list, by the way. The Sutherland Springs, Texas event, that terror attack, that shooting, that has MK Ultra written all over it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Remember also the day on November 3rd, the day before the new moon, was when Rand Paul was attacked by his neighbor, which also looks like it could possibly be some kind of a, some kind of op, some tech maybe involved with that. And so that was the eve of the full moon, and we talked about how, when I was on Phoenix's show, I was talking about the eve of the full moon really that energetic will enter in, even though the minute of the full moon hasn't started, building towards that because all energy moves in waves. And what I did not talk about for the full moon with the list there was that Lexington, Kentucky was highlighted. It wasn't highlighted as much as the others. And if I listed every single city or town, it would be a really long list. That I looked at Lexington and I didn't put it on the list. Well, Bowling Green is about 50 or so miles from Lexington. So, why am I going into all of this? Only to say that it does appear that the astrocartography is saying that where energy is focused, there's more potential for something to develop, either orchestrated or not. Because remember, it's energy still.
Exactly.
And so whenever when I'm talking about these things, you have to kind of like broaden it out, look at it, within a spectrum. It is still quite specific as far as the locations and the dates. So let's talk about that as how that factors in with the new moon in Scorpio, because we do have the astrocartography on that. And please pardon my voice here, so I'm getting a little bit hoarse. I hope my voice holds up so we can get to all these things I have here. Scorpio new moon begins November 18th, 2017, 6:42 a.m. Eastern Time. This month, this cycle is Pluto, Saturn, Galactic Center. Massive events happening in the skies. At the time of the new moon, Saturn will be exactly conjunct the galactic center. Huge. Saturn rules time. It is the ruler of structure. It rules Capricorn, where Pluto currently is, and where the black moon now is, which we'll get to. It's the goat. It is the energy of it's the headquarters of the archons. And let me digress here because I had a question about this. Actually, we did on a couple of recordings ago that we didn't get to, Andrew. And that was I've always talked about how Saturn is the energetic home of the archons, and then one day in the Oracle report I had written that Jupiter is their high holy planet. That's specific. So their holy worship planet is Jupiter, but as far as their base, or as far as how they, and I don't mean necessarily like their physical, they have a base there. There's bases and there's activity there in the rings and all, but that's from archonic manipulation of other things, other beings, entities, humans. That's another whole subject. However, so just so we know that the reason that Saturn is that energetic there, that the archons resonate with and that they utilize, is because it's formative. It forms structure. It's how they make things happen, because they can't make things happen physically here. They have to use hosts to do that. So just to clear that up, it will be in conjunction with the galactic center, and to the Gnostics, that's the pleroma, the home of the aeons, our spiritual home in the galaxy, the place from which the Godhead infuses energy in Gnostic terminology. And it's an alignment. It's an alignment of the highest level spiritual frequencies dropping down to Saturn and bombarding it, really. And so anytime a planet lines up with the galactic center in conjunction, meaning it's at that same degree in the sky, a higher spiritual wave will come down upon that planet. On October 7th, 2017, the Black Moon made conjunction with the galactic center. That's probably another whole recording of what all that started and or opened up. The Black Moon being all of those issues of feminism and the divine feminine and the balanced masculine and feminine and power and control issues within those relationships. When Saturn now, we come to Saturn, we have the structure of things. And Saturn is like the father or the superego in psychoanalytic theory. And always wants us to do the right thing and be responsible, and it's totally a drag because it can really make us feel bad about ourselves. And I always say that Saturn says, you suck. And I'm also fond of saying that Saturn is a punk ass. I have a Moon-Saturn conjunction natally, so I live with it all the time. Time is the key thing with Saturn.
Yes.
And so when I was looking at this a few weeks ago, when Saturn was going to conjunct the galactic center, and actually it was just as all this stuff was happening with Saudi Arabia and the civil war happening there and everything coming out, and with just everything coming out in the world, with where it's all coming out about the power and control issues, all of the corruption, everything. We all know this. This is a topic we've been talking about for a long time. This is nothing new to Oracle Report readers because we saw this coming since 2015.
Let's just say there's nothing new about it.
What we have now...
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
There's nothing new about it, but every time I see something new happen, I'm going, who the hell is behind this today?
Who's active today, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, who is it? And let's just say it's all making me dizzy trying to figure out who's doing what in the world.
Yes. And so please, if you can, Andrew, help me to come back to that question, because that's a major objective of this recording is what to do about that. How do we handle that? Mm-hmm. So when all this, as it was coming out, and then last week about with basically the cabal, their operatives within Saudi Arabia, the Bandar Bush variety, coming out of power, and my thought was it's about time. That in correlation with everything else about everything that's been coming out. It's about time. The Mahavidyas said to me, it's Amok time. Which meant a couple of things to me. Because Amok time, yeah. Well, because, like I said, it means a couple of things. One thing is, Amok time is the title of a Star Trek classic variety, so the 60s Star Trek. That's the title of the Star Trek episode. You know what I'm speaking of, right?
I know it very, very well. I could recite it almost. Let's go into the depth of my geekness when I was a teenager.
Yeah, I know, me too. So let's give your little brief cliff notes of it. Of the episode. Do you remember it that well?
The episode is all. The episode is all about Mr. Spock, and all of a sudden he basically goes into heat and disappears and freaks everyone out. And it's up to the people on the Enterprise to figure out exactly what happened and to chase him to the planet Vulcan, where he can go basically try to rut. I like to think of it that way because it was just absolutely hysterical and ended up at the time being one of the most popular episodes that Star Trek had ever put out because it went into everybody's favorite character, Mr. Spock, who was the Enigma. But it
and who never had emotions.
No.
And then was overwhelmed by all this emotion because he was basically in his mating cycle and everything was running amok, and it was just made everything crazy.
Exactly.
Well, that's basically. Go ahead.
Is that what we're facing now? Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, he gets emotional. He starts attacking people. He runs and tries to find his mate, and disappears. And it's a matter of how they come to terms with it. Something Star Trek always likes to do: add sex into it.
Indeed. And this let me just add here, this is not to diminish the truth that's been, shown out over the years about Gene Roddenberry and his naval connections and naval intelligence. There's a whole line, who all he was connected up to. But, interestingly, there's one piece that I don't know if anyone has spoken about, or one part of that Star Trek, the classic, and that's Chekhov, the actor who played Chekhov. Who I believe is still alive. His name is Walter Koenig. And he actually became a sci-fi writer. And if anyone's interested, look up his Wikipedia page and just see his background, psychology. And then, he becomes an actor. And then, he starts writing these children's shows, one of which is Land of the Lost. And one of the episodes of that is where the character of Land of the Lost, if y'all remember it, y'all Gen Xers like us, was Sleestack Enoch, E-N-I-K, a variation on Inky, E-N-K-I, was introduced. And so in this time frame, this is like 74, 75, I believe, just prior to when Sitchin's books, the 12 Planet books were introduced. So that's just an aside there. I don't want anyone, thinking that we're not aware of, obviously, the other side of Star Trek. But, hey, I loved me some Star Trek when I was growing up. So the amok time, all of this now with Scorpio cycle. Well, Scorpio energy and the Scorpio cycle of the year is always kind of like that because Scorpio rules. The original ruler was Mars, so it has a war element to it. It rules the underworld and mafia and corruption and sex and money, inheritance and taxes. And it's very much related into Mars. Mars will be in square to Pluto at the time of the new moon, and Venus will be sextiling Pluto. Mars will also be opposite the Eris point at the new moon. A lot of warish energy, a lot of the masculine and feminine coming together to rectify, because that's where it's going, and how it puts in Pluto, Saturn, and the galactic center all in with this Mars and Pluto action. We just got Scorpio action with all of this. So just kind of hold that as a background, and I'll go through the Sabian symbols that are in effect at the new moon. And remember, this means that it is imprinted at the new moon and then unfolds throughout each moon phase all month long throughout the 8 phases.
Yes.
I might add that, interestingly, the chart of the new moon at 6:42 a.m. Eastern Time has New York City on the ascendant. So that highlights New York City. And let me just go through that astrocartography now, because since I'm bringing that up, when I mentioned that Mars and Pluto are, they're in square and they're so active, in the U.S., that is activating in the Northeast corridor from Boston all the way down to D.C., New York, Philadelphia, all in that area. And in the Middle East, Mars and Pluto are activating Saudi Arabia and Iran. Saturn is activating Turkey. So those are the only places. The new moon is not, per se, is not as active Saturn is not active at all in the U.S., and the new moon, the moon and sun is in that northeast corridor with Mars and Pluto happening. So those are the areas: northeast corridor, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. Okay. Obviously, also what I just said, New York City. Also, I don't want to forget to mention the San Andreas Fault is activated with the new moon, and it's up at San Francisco area. So San Francisco is also highlighted. Okay. The new moon takes place at 27.
For anyone not following, San Andreas Fault is also very, very active at this moment, and there's been a quake watch on it pretty strong for the past about 3 to 4 days, and they're afraid that things are happening with it.
Yes. Astrology is highlighting it.
Yes.
Okay.
So
the new moon.
Go ahead.
That new moon at 27 degrees of Scorpio, that Sabian symbol is a military band marches noisily through the city streets. Okay, so military band marching. Okay, so that's noise, a lot of noise. It's going to be a noisy month. A lot of announcements about things, pronouncing things, shows, demonstrations, things like that. It can be kind of pompous. People can be rather demanding under that energetic. When we remember, we're looking at the woman's hat with streamers blown by the east wind as our backdrop of the whole year. We put in a military band marches noisily through the city streets. We add into that the black moon located at 3 stained glass windows in a Gothic church, one damaged by war. It's bringing in another warlike element there. It also brings in specifically divide and conquer tactics and different types of ops and within media, especially to divide people, racial division. The black moon is just inherently tied to racism and slavery. And it can be kind of a steady assault of that energetic. And a breaking, a shattering in that way. We also have Pluto. And I talked about how this cycle is Pluto. Because Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, but Pluto will be discharging for the last time. The Union Jack flies over new British warship. The last time for this go around of the zodiac for Pluto, I should say. So for a very, very, very long time. We've seen how that energetic over Pluto's toggle over that degree over the last 3 years as it's gone back and forth. We've seen the pummeling of not just Britain, but of the EU. So all of that will be coming back up, this cycle. The Earth will be located at an old Indian woman selling beads. This is about offerings, wiser or more knowledgeable or older people giving to younger people. It can be selling things short. One thing that is part of all of this is the instant karma that we're seeing. So now, if people are on the wrong side of the bar, if they're operating on the negative end or the 51% negative or 51% service to self, however you want to look at it, not within integrity, not within a higher level energetic, that's happening very quickly. The blowback from that, if people are exhibiting or if they're doing that, if they're engaging in anything like that, it's coming out very, very quickly. This is all part of a lot of things, which I'm going to record about with Andrew in a separate recording, tracing back basically from the early 1900s how this has kind of happened to bring us to this point now that began in 2015 about this setting of the bar, or what my friend Phoenix over at Phoenix Rising Radio calls the leveling. If you're in integrity or not, if you're in the higher level consciousness that we're in. If we're in 5D basically, and anything that can't withstand that consciousness isn't withstanding that consciousness, and it is, it's recycling. It's coming down for renovation or leaving altogether. when we have Saturn at the galactic center, it's discharging 27 Sagittarius, and that's the sculptor's vision is taking form, which is just, I just find that really amazing that happens to be the Sabian symbol. I mean, it's not, because the Sabian symbols are not surprising, but it really is so Gnostic, because the galactic center is that creative place, and it's the place from which the aeons spin out the codes of life to go out into the galaxy. And whatever vision they have, it takes its form. And so when we have this conjunction, it does mean that a higher energetic is going to be affecting archontic energies. Now, Saturn made conjunction with the galactic center earlier in the year because it retrograded, and now it's come back to it. The last time that it made conjunction was February 22nd, 2017, and that was just after the black moon had moved into Sagittarius on Valentine's Day. So if you are keeping a journal, or if you remember back, go back to February 22nd. Around that time, we can look at what was going on then. I did not have time to do that, but we'll see maybe the second round of whatever was happening then. But then, if you'd like to take it a little bit further, the last time in Saturn's cycles that Saturn was conjunct the galactic center was in 1988, specifically January 8th, and then again on September 22nd. And so 1988 was really when that energetic was in play, when that first discharge of the galactic center with Saturn, and then that second part of it after it had retrograded. This is what Wikipedia says about 1988. In the 20th century, the year 1988 has the most Roman numeral digits, 11. 1988 was a crucial year in the early history of the Internet. It was the year of the first well-known computer virus, the 1988 Internet worm. The first permanent intercontinental Internet link was made between the U.S. and Europe, as well as the first Internet-based chat protocol, Internet Relay Chat. The concept of the World Wide Web was first discussed at CERN in 1988. The Soviet Union began its major restructuring towards a mixed economy at the beginning of 1988 and began its gradual collapse. The Iron Curtain began to disintegrate in 1988 as Hungary began allowing freer travel to the West. Hungary was first. Remember what we've seen now? What has Hungary done now? They're basically going after Soros.
Definitely.
Continuing, the first extrasolar planet, Gamma Cephei Ab, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is confirmed in 2002, was detected this year, and the World Health Organization began its mission to eradicate polio. Yeah.
Thank you.
No comment on that one. But anyway, so that gives us an idea. So we understand what was happening at that time, and we can apply that now, can't we? But let's move on.
Do you find it as interesting that the Internet was being discovered in 1988 and they didn't even mention Al Gore?
Oh, Al.
Got to add that one, sorry.
Yeah, 88, wow. Okay, Mercury is going to go retrograde. I'll cover that in a second. It's at the new moon, it's discharging tiny children in sunbonnets. And so this is about protection. And when we're not able to see the full picture of things, enabling us to see the full picture. Neptune continues to discharge an examination of initiates in the sanctuary of an occult brotherhood, which has been Neptune, which rules spirituality and consciousness, higher astral realms ruled by Pisces, has been disseminating this for a while, been retrograde, and giving us tests and making us stronger. Chiron, which is in Pisces, is continuing to discharge the purging of the priesthood. So again, the churning away of that. Uranus is at a man possessed of more gifts than he can hold, about things that we can no longer contain. Not just our voices about things and our feelings, but our ideas. More ideas than we can hold. more things than we could possibly want to do, or we could do probably. Mars, which as I mentioned is so key here at the new moon, is that a retired sea captain watches ships entering and leaving the harbor, which is one of my favorites. If you've been following me for a while, you know I really love that one. It's about memories and experience and about recollections of the past. And so it does empower to a certain degree the past. So if issues of the past are in full focus for you right now, and that could be if you have the sun, Chiron, or the black moon in Capricorn or Cancer, because those are those of us who are under the heavy rebirth now that the black moon has moved into Capricorn. That's going to bring back the past or traumatic memories. But what it does is it enables us to really grasp onto the wisdom of it and to see the higher plan, or perhaps why things happen the way they did. Jupiter will be discharging a dentist at work. This is always about repairing damage. Always, always. In addition, Venus will be at telephone lineman at work installing new connections, another Sabian symbol about repairing, and forming new lines of communication and strengthening existing ones. What's left here? We have the nodes, the north and the south nodes. The north node, which is destiny, is that American Indians perform a ritual to the sun. It's 20 Aquarius. Lovely. Again, another Native American symbol. And the south node, which is the past, at 20 Aquarius, a large white dove bearing a message. So what do we have going on with all of this? Obviously, we see some war activity, relationships undergoing better communications or improving their communications, gaining wisdom, and perhaps, through painful events, because we do have the 3 stained glass windows in the Gothic church, one damaged by war. In astrology, the one that's damaged by war is considered by astrologers to be the window that would represent love in a triad. And so the black moon rectifying all of that. So even though, think about that, even though we do have a lot of war stuff in effect here, all of this is happening to lead us to liberty, to get us closer to liberty. It's all coming out to purge it all so that a rebirth, the Renaissance can happen. It has all been planned. Sophia has had this plan in effect for some time. She's worked out the solution. Elite is helping to implement through will and through our divine will the implementation of the solution, and so we see very radical things happening. So that is the overview of what is happening this coming month. Let's take it now to the new moon in Sagittarius and how the dates are going to go, the dates that I mentioned to point out. Okay, so between now and November 27th, we have the black moon discharging the 3 stained glass windows damaged by war. Now, on the 27th, we're going to highlight that day because Mercury will conjunct Saturn and the moon will conjunct Chiron. So there may be some type of painful purge going on. It would be emotionally or in the world, or kind of a build between now and then. Thanksgiving time is in there. Just be aware that there's activity. On Thanksgiving in the U.S., on November 23rd, and on the 24th, Black Friday, the day after it, Mars will be opposite the Eris point. That gives us a higher false flag potential. November 30th through December 1st. We can have some shocks, some surprises, and some things that happen very quickly, or there could be some type of war-like activity. The moon will conjunct Uranus at a man possessed of gifts than he can hold, so the moon will hit that point on Uranus. So just an overabundance there, just a lot. But then Mars will be discharging an eagle and a white dove turning into each other. And so even if we do see some type of warlike activity, please remember this is all happening as a reshuffling and to rectify and it's happening. We're in the middle of it, in the midst of it, and what it looks like now is not what it's going to look like when we're finished. Okay, so we're in process. On December 3rd, Mercury's going to go retrograde, and it will be retrograde until December 22nd. I highly recommend that if you're planning to buy any type of electronics for Christmas presents or whatnot, you want to buy those this weekend. So get before that, because you don't want to buy electronics during a Mercury retrograde, and we're coming into the shadow, and so you're not really going to be within that window again before Christmas. So if you need electronics, or if you're thinking about doing that, my recommendation is to do it now. Because what happens is later on during a future Mercury retrograde, that device will fail in some way. It's the law. December 4th, the Mahavidyas have highlighted this day. I don't know why, other than the moon will oppose Saturn that day, so we'll just keep an eye out. On December 6th, Mercury will conjunct Saturn. We'll see some information come to light. And then on the 7th, December 7th, Pluto will complete discharge of 18 Capricorn, which is the Union Jack flies from a British warship. December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. December 12th and 14th, that's when the Sun and Mercury are going to be in conjunction. And so that's going to be all about IT and communications. And remember, Mercury will be retrograde. So know that your communications and travel, or weirdness with driving and anything communication wise that people say, things like that, that's going to be kind of wonky December 12th through the 14th. That happens. But it also is improvement. Remember, we have those repair lines.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those 12th and the 14th.
I didn't catch that either.
Between the 12th and the 14th, everybody should just hunker down and turn everything off.
One day we're going to work you out of your Mercury retrograde trauma.
I don't know. It's been getting better. I changed my attitude towards it, but I'm always aware of it.
Well, you have to be. You don't have to be, but it just helps if you do know. Then you can just be like, oh, it's Mercury retrograde.
Exactly.
December 18th. And the new moon in Sagittarius. The new moon in Sagittarius is at 26 degrees Sagittarius, 31 minutes. And the galactic center is 26 degrees Sagittarius, 22 minutes. And so it's about as close as a conjunction as you could get. Remember, that is the Sabian symbol of the sculptor's vision is taking form. So as Saturn makes conjunction with the galactic center now, and then we move into the sun and moon in conjunction for that month there, we are going to see rapid manifestation of higher level energetics that are coming down onto the planet. Now, we always see a high and a low into that because it drives archons crazy and they act out and they get desperate. But then if you're above the bar, 51% positive and service to others, it's a beautiful reckoning that is hard to see, but the vision that is taking form does lead to renaissance. That's what we remember. Mm-hmm. On December 19th, Saturn is going to move into Capricorn. So that's the day after the new moon. So that's when we're going to heavily enter into everything that I just read from 1988 in the Wikipedia entry. So that's when we'll really start to see that stuff happening. And then on December 21st, the Sun will conjunct Saturn at 1 degree of Capricorn, and the Indian chief claims power from the assembled tribe. So what's happening is an overturning of Saturn. The Aeonic frequencies are overwhelming the archonic frequencies in order to return the archons to Sophia and help her enable integration of her shadow side. Okay, so this is getting ready to happen. Just as Saturn there was a revolution with Saturn in '88, and we know that the New World Order and the Cabal uses Saturn. Like I said, it's a primary energetic that they use for form and structure and control because that's what Saturn rules. Remember, the Gnostics tell us that it is the archons who formed the other planets in the system other than the Earth, based on what Sophia, the codes and the gnosis that Sophia gave them, so they could have their own world, which they took advantage of and used to wreak havoc on us and her. Us out of jealousy, her out of anger, because they are her. It's the part of her that couldn't see herself. Really, when we talk about Sophia's shadow integration, this has already happened. We're just playing it out in space-time now. Just like when the music of the spheres and the reset hit on April 18th, 2015, we're now seeing at the midpoint of that, the 5-year rework of that, what that really meant and how that reset and that recalibration would manifest on Earth. There's a lag. So we're in the lag of Sophia's return to home, return to source, return to galactic center with us, which gives me a great opportunity to talk about something that I don't think that we talk about enough. I don't talk about enough, and it's really the key to remembering and keeping sane during all of this. And so I'll close out with this. Humans on Earth are so very precious in the galaxy. Why? Because of the archons and Sophia. We are precious and multifaceted by the laser-like cutting of the planets, of the other planets in the rest of the archonically created extrasolar part of the solar system. So all of the planets except the Earth are archonically created. And so they were created with certain energetics in mind and put in place at certain times and put in spin at certain times in order to have things happen at certain times and to be able to control what would happen. And so we are loved because we have been incubated within not only a very difficult thing of having multiple planets bombarding us to create just fabulous souls that then go out and do amazing things, but within the dreaming of the being that created it, or created the codes from the source, from Godhead. And so we are incubated in the dreaming of the spiritual being, the Earth, that created us in a cosmic collaboration that was an offering and a request, I should say, to the Earth experience, to offer to souls, galactic souls, to come and experience, to come and help. And this is what we need to remember, that what we're doing here and what's happening. The soul of whoever you are, whatever you were before you incarnated, wherever you came from, or you're here hanging out, it's an experience that is a blessing. And even though it is very hard, what it produces is very beautiful, and it's shining, and it's a light that it just dazzles and flashes light out. And so we must remember to be grateful. As this happens, let me move into the direction of where we go after we have this new moon at the galactic center. All of this heads towards the new moon in Aries on April 15th, 2018, will be conjunct Uranus. The Sabian symbol is through imagination, a lost opportunity is regained. That's on April 15th, 2018. On April 16th, 2018, mighty Chiron will enter Aries, and the sun will be exact conjunct Uranus that day. Chiron in Aries will heal the world. On April 20th, 420, Mars will conjunct the black moon. And then 1 month later, a little bit later, during the Taurus cycle, on May 17th, the black moon will finally conjunct Pluto at 22 Capricorn, a general accepting defeat gracefully. You may remember that I had, if you're on Facebook, on the Oracle Report Facebook community, I had posited a question about what does that Sabian symbol mean to you, because it's one I study a lot. Now I know the reason why. There was a personal reason for that. There's a bigger reason for that, too. think we should think about what that means in the context of what's happening now, how that applies to, through imagination, the lost opportunity is regained, and how we can understand that now in context of who we are and how very loved and how precious we are to great beings, to minds greater than us. But not only that, for the individuality that we have because of all of that faceting, which is what will enable us to continue to build second renaissance. What do you do when you see all of the Amok time? What do you do with everything that's happening as you're watching it? And there's so much sadness, and so many things are being glossed over in mass, but yet forwarding an agenda of truth. You follow your heart. You follow your heart to build second renaissance and do what you love to do as an act of doing, not necessarily as an act of outcome or production or something that you produce, something physical. It's the act of engaging in something that you love. That's how we create second renaissance, because that produces the shift. And so when the Amok time during the Scorpio cycle, just Scorpio is just, it's difficult energy. Pretty much everyone listening now is familiar with Scorpio. And poor Scorpios just get the roughest time. Everyone gives Sun and Scorpio the most difficult time because it's a...
Just a moment. Laura has come off of the call. She'll come back in just a minute to finish up. But anybody who's been listening can feel how completely wild this time is right now. And as she was saying, it's a follow your heart time, because that's what the second renaissance is all about. And as she and I were talking, you sit and think about the things that you do in the second renaissance that are important to you. And, how do you lead your life? For me, here she comes.
I'm
Are
back.
you there, Jim?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I kept it going and talking about the second renaissance and following your heart.
Well, yeah, that's really all I really have to say, and probably all I could have said in just one sentence. What do you need to do? Follow your heart. It sounds so simplistic and so elementary and whatnot, but there is a very core teaching within this, because we have to produce from that place, from the heart, from love. And what is happening is the activation of the heart by the will, the activation of the divine feminine, the heart, with the will to activate it. And so that's where we want to focus. Remember, I have been talking about this as, it's like a car accident is happening, and it's just so unbelievable, and you can stare at it and stare at it and stare at it. But don't keep up with it, know what's happening, but build and actualize yourself. There's things you want to do and that you came here to do. Reconnect with that. Hold your head high and turn towards the sun. This is what we are here to do. And so if we're not activating our hearts, we can't make it happen. And that's what we're here to build second renaissance. And not really trying to cheerlead, but we have to remember this. And that's my job to help remind us. So, let's just do that. I think we're good here, Andrew, to close out. And everybody be hopefully in the next few days, we will go through all of this, what I was talking about with Pluto through the signs and the generations of the Depression babies, the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, all the way up until the millennials, and how that's relating into Sophia's solution for this that we are seeing unfold. So I hope this was helpful and provide some context of where we are and perhaps a little glimpse about where things are headed, because I'm really quite positive about this. I have been for a long time. I do talk about when we do have things that are potential for, suffering, but that's just to be aware, and we have that, know it, and we continue on and drive on. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Andrew, for everything. And I am not out of the picture here, everybody. Yep. I'm restructuring what I'm doing with my time as I'm able to, and please don't worry. I'm right here, still here, so no worries.
Well, thank you to everyone for listening, and thank you, Laura. Remember, it's time to follow your heart and find that heart space that you're in and the things that make you feel good from deep within. And those are the things that are important. So with that, thank you, everyone.